Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Monday, March 18th, 2024. And this is episode 882 of Living Free in Tennessee. And last week, I went from 879 to 890 on accident, which is a thing I do with numbers sometimes. And Letty pointed it out to me. So we'll be renumbering the episodes on the website and in your podcatcher, but I'm not going to go back and re-record the introductions. So there'll just be a little bit of number dyslexia. You can experience what it feels like to be number dyslexic by listening to those episodes. But we are back on track with the proper numbering this time. And today I'm going to talk about lessons learned from the free 5-day webinar series that was put together by the Yes Self-Reliance Festival team and by me to get people excited about the event, to teach people something new. We're going to talk about all of that because it's something that's very unlike anything our community has done, but it has resonated really well with people. So we'll do that. We're also going to go over our usual Monday segments, Tales from the Prepper Pantry, the weekly shopping report, a frugality tip, and Operation Independence, like we do every week. Before we do that, though, I want to talk about our featured event of today's show, and that's the Kentucky Sustainable Living Expo, which is this weekend. There are some pre-expo webinars on Friday, and then Saturday at 8:30, doors open, and they do a bunch of great sessions from the podium. They've got vendors, they've got demonstrations. It's going to be a really good time up in Bowling Green, Kentucky. You can get tickets at KentuckySustainableLiving.com. That also tells you more information about the event. I will be there speaking on pantry management Saturday. So if you find yourself there and you listen to this podcast, be sure to come up to me and introduce yourself if we haven't met before. And if we have, come say hi, guys. Like, that's the reason you go to these events. I actually do want you to come up and talk to me, just not 5 minutes before I go on stage. After I've gone on stage, that's fine. But like right before, I'm just sort of thinking in my head, what do I need to say for the first 30 seconds? So other than that time, it's not a bad time. Also, don't follow me into the bathroom. That happened once and it was weird. Anyway, Kentucky Sustainable Living this weekend, KentuckySustainableLiving.com. I also want to thank our two sponsors of today's show. The first sponsor is Holler Roast Coffee. Get delicious, freshly roasted coffee delivered to your door at hollerroast.com. If you are a member, you also get a discount. Be sure to grab that in the membership portal. If you can't find it, let me know, because we have been rejigging the membership portal again to be a little bit more to serve you a little bit better, because I realized that, like, I know where things are, but nobody else knows where things are. And you will probably be getting an email soon about that, just sort of introducing where we've moved things around. I also want to thank our second sponsor of today's show, and that's John Pugliano of the Wealth Studying Podcast. John has a podcast episode like series called the Wealth Studying Podcast, like homesteading, only wealth studying, and it's all about managing your money. And he shares how he manages his money. He's a self-made millionaire. So he went from poverty to through becoming a millionaire, and then became a money manager only after he had made his first $1 million through investing. So not just like the earning and saving part, but the investing part. And he shares with you how he's making decisions, how he analyzes where to put his funds very openly on the podcast. They're about 15 minutes long. Just download the Wealth Studying Podcast on any podcatcher or go to investablewealth.com, click on podcasts, and you can play episodes from there as well. Finally, it's time to go over our live stream schedule. And I decided not to list the episodes this week. So they are in the show notes and we are on our usual schedule. So every day this week, there is something you can see. I will tell you that the redneck is hijacking homestead happenings on Friday. So he will be solo on that unless he grabs another holler neighbor, which totally could happen, because I'll be getting ready for the Kentucky Sustainable Living Expo, and we were going to not do the show. And he's like, I'm taking over your show and I'm going to say whatever I want. So definitely don't miss that one. Next up, we have our first segment of today's show, and that is Tales from the Prepper Pantry. This is where we talk about storing what you use and using what you store. And man, when life gets busy, like, I love to cook a good meal. I love to cook a good meal, sit down, enjoy it from things that we've grown here on the homestead. But when I get really busy, like, I'm thinking about what life is like when I'm really busy, because Self-Reliance Festival's in 3 weeks, 2.5. Anyway, it's hard to love to cook for me. So I've had a couple of days in the last few weeks where I get home and I'm like, I want to get Chinese takeout or I want to get Mexican takeout because Mexican takeout is literally right over the hill at the marina and we can order it and they have our food ready in 10 minutes and we can just pop over and get it. And what that does for me is I don't have to defrost and figure out and cook and all those things. B, I don't have dishes because it comes in all the paper dishes. Well, that's a lot of waste. And their food is decent. Like I pull the Mexican food card from time to time, but our food is better and it's better for us. And when you're in a time of really busy, it's actually better to eat the healthy food as best you can. And so I've been really struggling with this, guys. I'll just totally admit that. But luckily, I've had people willing to brainstorm with me. Friday, I was driving for about 4 hours and I was on my way home. I'm like, I'm totally getting Chinese takeout because I'm driving right by a decent Chinese food place. I can pop in there, wait, 20 minutes. I'll come out with the food. I'll drive the rest of the way home. No dishes. I can get home and cook. I'm already exhausted. Like I was the level of exhausted on Friday that you get when you feel like you have a cold coming on. Luckily, no cold came on. And about 10 minutes before I hit the Chinese food place, I was like, you know what? I'm so tired. I don't want to wait that 20 minutes. I'm afraid I'm going to get too tired to drive. If I wait that 20 minutes, I'm like, I'll hit up Nighthawk and see if he'll pick up Chinese food on his way home. And I'm like, okay, stop being ridiculous. Like you legit have 3 pounds of ground beef in your fridge defrosted because the key to success in cooking on busy weeks is for me to take things out of the freezer. I know that I can cook efficiently, that are delicious, like, crock pot meals or whatever. And ground beef is a really good one or ground whatever. And so I hatched the plan in my head that I would just put some spices in there, make hamburger patties, cook hamburgers. And then I happened to know that I had from the grocery store, full confession, a bag of spinach. And I could just put that whole bag of spinach with some onions in the cast iron skillet and saute it up. And it would go from being really big to being like a serving and a half. And that would be dinner. And then if T was still hungry, we had leftover Mexican ground beef that we had like a taco salad night the day before. But I was really trying, I was like, I don't want to do taco salad again. And, like all of that. In fact, we're going to probably do taco salad today as a side dish because I need to use it up now because that was Friday and it's Monday. Anyway, so we made it. And I got home and I did not want to move when I got home. And that's typical of me when I drive. Like I usually plan in a 20 to 30-minute break after I get home from a long trip just because it's like you were just sitting in the car, but you're exhausted anyway. But the good thing about that is that I got home. I'm like, I don't want to cook. 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 Nobody showed up to cook for me, just for the record. And then I was like, okay, put your big girl pants on. Pump up some music you like, make the hamburger patties and cook them. And like legit takes 15 minutes to do that. Like spices, mix it up. If you don't want to get your hands dirty, you can wear gloves. Anyway, mix it up, patty it up, and cook it 15 minutes. Slice an onion, slice a pickle. The saute was going while I was cooking that. And that was like literally just shake it into the bag, shake the bag into the pan and put some salt and some spices on it from the spice rack and be done with it. And then throw out barbecue sauce, mustard, whatever people might want on their hamburgers. And then we don't do buns here. So that was it. It was fine. I even melted cheese on the burgers on the stove so that they were cheeseburgers, it was, it's just funny because we build up these stories in our head about how hard it is. And then we do it. And it's like, literally, I needed 15 minutes of not thinking about, writing my book or marketing or the presentation I'm giving in a week or whatever else was like flowing through my head, which was what was making me not really want to cook, which is one of the things I love to do. So sometimes, guys, eating from your pantry means sucking it up and cooking anyway. And usually once you get over the start line, like you pass the start line, you're fine. I was fine. It was delicious. And I think I feel better and am not sick because I continued to eat the homegrown food. We are curing pork bellies this week. I said that last week and it took me a few days to get them out of the freezer. They are actually literally in my kitchen right now. Today I am weighing everything, measuring the salt and the curing salt. I really hope I can find my curing salt because of the construction. If I can't, I'm going to spend half the day looking for my curing salt, getting them vacuum sealed, and then we put them in the freezer, vacuum sealed, and flip them every day for a couple of weeks. And then if it's still cold enough, I'll cold smoke them. And if it's not, they won't be smoked this time. But I will make a few videos about that as we do it and just upload them to the video section of the YouTube channel. I also found a solution for organizing my jars of herbal teas and things that we grow here. So I have like a whole bunch of chocolate mint, and I collect wild rose petals. Like right now, the dandelion flowers are out. So you collect those and then you dry them. And then I use those in teas throughout the year. And over the years, I have over collected, but I have stopped over collecting, and I've started just paying attention to how much I use and then which sort of things have a medicinal benefit, like echinacea that I may not drink all the time, but it's nice to have it on hand. My thing is I want my herbs refreshed every year to the best of my ability, and I'd rather be able to grow them here and harvest them here than order them in. Although I'm perfectly happy to order them in or source them, like Tatiana, who did our herbal presentation at the Homesteaders Alliance meeting. Like she grows places you can source them locally as well. I think that's even better than order in. And then if you need to order them in, order them in. But what happened is when we redid my kitchen, all of my cabinets are basically gone. And so places where I stored all this stuff are not available. And this has led to a series of bins of things are still around. A lot of bins of things are around. I've started getting rid of things, like I'm selling my KitchenAid mixer. I haven't put it up yet or taken a picture of it yet, but I think I'm actually ready to bring it over here, put it on one of my picnic tables under Taj Mahal, or take some pictures and get it listed for sale. And, some of the stuff is selling, some isn't. If it doesn't sell, I end up like taking it to Goodwill or wherever. I forgot at the Homesteader Alliance meeting we did this weekend, the seed exchange, to mention that I had 2 vacuum cleaners up. So those are just going to go to Goodwill. We've done a whole vacuum cleaner shift that I'll talk about another time. But I was going to get rid of this. I had this shelving unit that's like cubes that used to be in my bathroom for organizing bathroom stuff. And I had like little bins in the cubes. And I realized that you can do 3 mason jars per cube in a couple of lines. And that I had this bin of mason jars of things I've collected. And so I'm starting the process now. And this is one of my 15-minute homestead projects, right? I'm starting the process of organizing those in, if I've used half the jar, reducing the size of the jar so I don't need as much space. And then looking at how old they are and what I'm replenishing right now. For example, I don't need dried comfrey anymore. I don't. There's comfrey growing all over in my yard, so there's no reason. And I will harvest comfrey in the fall for overwintering in case we need comfrey in the winter. And so then what I'll do is I'll take all that, compost it out in the yard, it returns to the earth, and then we harvest from the earth. And I'll be looking at this time like how much we've been using. And so the way I'm doing that is just like putting all the jars out, looking at how long they've been here. And then of course I also have other teas I like from Angie's Gardens, another place. Like they make Delilah Rose is one of my favorite ones of theirs. And I have a lot of it. I'm still not throwing it away, but it's a couple years old because I ordered it in bulk and repackaged it into a giveaway for my Kickstarter like 3 years ago or 2 years ago. So that's how old it is. Not ideal, but that's for flavor and not for medicinal reasons. And I'm still adding Delilah Rose to things. It's just that I've been so into the mint teas this year that I've used less of that. But that has like chocolate mint and rose petals and that sort of thing. So it's really nice. It is absolutely time to grab vinegar. There's no way I'm putting this off before Self-Reliance Festival. I was hoping I would. But I need to go buy like a 6-pack of gallons of vinegar for the year. And what I've been doing this year as part of the reconstruction is letting some of my stuff run out on purpose and recalculating or recalibrating how much we stock per year. And vinegar is one of those things. I just buy it annually, and most of the time my estimates are correct. And a couple of years ago, I was using a lot more vinegar than I'm using now. So we are down to, I think it's about a 6-gallon a year thing, unless I go completely cucumber crazy or I get way more beets than I think I'm going to get this year. And if that happens, then I will gladly trot my little butt to the store and buy more vinegar during canning season. Important, though, is to make sure you're buying 5% vinegar, which most vinegar at the store is. Most white vinegar is 5%, but salad dressing vinegar, which also comes in gallon jugs, is 4. And if you do that, then you reduce how much water is in your recipe so that you have the same end percentage of vinegar that you're canning with. But you need to pay attention to that if you are pickling things with vinegar. And then this week, so I have a trade going with somebody who gives me 2 gallons of milk from their cow for a pound of coffee of the month. And we sort of had that on hold. It was supposed to start in December. We had it on hold because all of us were too busy. And then the cow had a calf and they were nursing the calf and they were like, we just don't have the surplus. And I'm like, I don't care because I'm so busy. I'm not processing milk into cheese all that much. Well, the 2 gallons of milk showed up last week and I was like, not going to drink it. I didn't feel like pulling the heavy cream off that stuff for my coffee because I had other heavy cream and I had just made butter. So I decided to make cottage cheese. And I did it on Thursday last week. And on Thursday, I work all day. I have a 5:30 meeting with the Self-Reliance Festival team. And that needs to end by 6 so I can eat food so that by 6:30 I can be getting ready for the 7 p.m. live stream. So things are a little tight on Thursdays. We'll just put it that way. Like I pre-cooked dinner at noon so that I could eat before we go live. Otherwise, it's like 8 o'clock before I get dinner, and then the kitchen's a mess, and I'm tired. And I'm like, I don't want to do the dishes. Like it's a whole cascading thing. So I started the cottage cheese. I was waiting for the milk to get to the temperature I needed. It took forever. And I started the cottage cheese like right before the team meeting at 5:30 because that's how timing worked out. And the way you make cottage cheese is you heat the milk to about 80 degrees and then you stir in rennet and then you let it curdify and then you cut the curd like for a while and then you cut the curd like you let it curdify for like 4 hours. So I guess I was waiting for it to finish curdifying at 5. No, I was waiting to pitch the rennet. And then you cut the curd and then you cook the curd a little bit to get more of the liquid out. You strain it. You backfill it with either buttermilk or heavy whipping cream if you want it to have that creamy thing. And then you end up with, the cottage cheese and you have left over. I used the whey in my garden just to help kickstart the life up there because that's a good, it's lactobacillus in your garden is good. Anyway, and so I did that. And in my head, I turned off the oven or the range. And in real life, I forgot to turn it off, but it was on low, so nothing burned. And so I went through my whole half-hour meeting with the heat still on the curd where you weren't supposed to have heat on the curd. And I got out and I was like, well, F a duck, right? Like, got to turn that off. And, and I was like, well, I'm going live in half an hour. I don't have time to even worry about this. So I just turned it off and left it for the curd to develop. And then after my live stream for Self-Reliance Festival on Thursday, I went out and I tested the curd to see if it was structurally strong. And it was. So like keeping on the heat made it curdify faster. And I cut it up and I'm like, I don't know if I'm getting cottage cheese or not. And we decided to dub this not quite cottage cheese. So the difference is that the curds of cottage cheese have sort of a soft, rubbery, creamy feel. And these were a little more grainy, which was still delicious. I've been melting it in eggs. I mixed some with herbs and served it on Sunday to the people who were here for the seed exchange. And they were like, that not quite cottage cheese is pretty good, Nicole. That's what they told. That's what everybody started calling it. So we made not quite cottage cheese this week. And that's the thing about making cheese, man. Like you make a mistake and you still end up with cheese. And cheese is delicious. Next up, we have the shopping report from Joe. Saturday was a solo trip to get an oil change, but then went to Hobby Lobby and found a few items I knew Sonia wanted. Saturday was our 7th year anniversary. Happy anniversary, Joe and Sonia. Dollar Tree, most of the drink coolers were full. All of them are now $2.25. So the $1.25 tree is now the $2.25 tree. Hello, inflation. Like, it's up 8%. And 8% of $1 is $2.25, right? An 8% increase. So that math doesn't work at all. Learn how inflation statistics work, my friends. Learn how they work. I still just grab a drink off a shelf. Aldi, more crowded than usual. Stock levels are good, and as usual, we found everything we wanted. Staple prices were as follows: eggs were $2.64, which is down from the week before. Whole milk $2.86, heavy cream $5.19, holy cannoli. Orange juice $3.29, butter $3.69, bacon $4.25, potatoes $3.99, sugar $3.09, flour $2.29, and 80% lean ground beef was $3.99, which is down a little bit. Home Depot 2x4x8 was $3.38, which he doesn't think changed. And a gallon of ethanol-free regular gasoline remains at $3.59.9. So that is the shopping report from Joe, and happy anniversary. Next up, we have a frugality tip from Margot, who is the person who sends in the most frugality tips, and she's really good at it. So if you ever get a chance to meet Margot, which you will if you come to Self-Reliance Festival in April, talk to her about it. She's a good brainstormer on how to make your life better, how to make, and build in savings as you go. So here's what Margot has to say. When pricing out new appliances, look at the delivery and setup fees. Those hidden fees can be another couple $100. In the last year, we've had to replace a spare refrigerator and a stacked washer and dryer. Side note, never buy a scratch and dent washer. Ask me how I know. I did that with an oven once. We ended up using one store, Best Buy, because delivery and setup were included in the price, and just got a new dishwasher, but didn't look at the add-on fees. What looked like a savings at the other store ended up being $180 more because they had an installation fee. So even if you're handy and are planning to put your own appliances in, look at the free delivery and setup and let someone else do the work without paying any more money if you can do it. Happy saving, y'all. That's a very astute thing, because I happen to know that the big box stores where we get hardware stuff have a tendency to charge $180 to come take the old dishwasher out and put the new dishwasher in, which requires splicing in the electrical, screwing in some hoses. It's not hard to do. And when they get there, if you don't have exactly the setup that they want for installation, they will upcharge you on installing it. For example, I had somebody come, and at one point my dishwasher was not on a dedicated circuit, and they were like, we have to run a dedicated circuit before we're willing to put this in. So then I, in essence, paid $180 for delivery and no installation. I have never paid for installation since that time, because it takes me between 15 minutes and half an hour to install my dishwasher, and I know how to do it. But before you go in and get the dishwasher, it is a good idea to see what the installation is going to look like. And then if it is included, make them do it. But man, watch those up charges on that. Next up, we have Operation Independence, where I talk about building local ongoing revenue into our lives. We are finally over the use it up phase. Yes, I'm still using up stuff in my pantry, but we have reached parity, beyond parity, with feed and eggs from the chickens. Except yesterday I went out and the stupid chickens are getting out of their yard, even though I've clipped their wing. I've got to do something else to contain them, because I want them in the mulch yard and not free ranging on my property. But I also started my day chasing a goat off of my fruit trees. So also, in related news, my fruit trees are impacted because they have little buds on them, and then the goats got out and started eating those little buds, and that's not great. But that probably means I'm not getting any plums from that tree. Super happy, super happy. Anyway, I had 4 American breast chickens and a rooster, and I looked yesterday and I said, Tactical, there are only 3 chickens. And he said, well, go look over at Nighthawks, because they've been going over there. So they've been like foraging wide and far, which makes their eggs really good. And I was like, well, because usually the flock kind of stays together. And I was expecting to find a body in the yard. And I'm like, wait a minute. There's that one place under that one barn where I saw eggs being laid, and I hadn't been collecting those eggs. I wonder if somebody went broody. And sure enough, if you've never seen a broody chicken, like, chickens are really cute, right? When they're broody, their head is down and they scowl and they just glare at you and they don't move. and I saw the scowl. So we've got one of the American breast chickens setting her eggs, and I assume she's the one who laid all the eggs there because only one chicken was laying there. I was getting 3 from the coop, and I kept saying, I don't want to collect eggs from there because I want to make sure that they're sanitary, and that place doesn't look as sanitary as I'd like it to be because the sheep were there and they pooped. And I never went and dealt with that situation. And now there's a chicken sitting there setting eggs. So what I did was mark it on the calendar, and 21 days from today, I expect that we will have little baby chicks. And then I'm really hoping, because the best thing that can happen is I don't have to brood eggs, and the chickens brood their own eggs and then raise their own chicks. So I'm really hoping that the chicks stay alive. So I'm going to be thinking about what I can line the pasture with once they're born and end up back over there with the chickens, that will keep the baby chicks from getting out. Because what happens when you have like 2 by 3 inch woven wire is the chicks can get out, and then mom's not out, and then there's nobody to protect the chicks, and then the cats become aware of it, or the foxes become aware of it, or other chickens attack them. Like, there's all this stuff that can happen. So if we can like line it with hardware cloth or fabric or paper, or I don't even know what, like there are different things we can do. It just helps them stay alive. And then as long as they're with their mom, she'll defend their honor. And I put this under Operation Independence because as we get more hens, we get more eggs, and they're helping us make compost, which we use in the garden. So we are printing money at the homestead, except for we're just printing chickens, but nature provides, and that's kind of cool. And we also had triplet lambs this week. So we went up to the pasture on Saturday after having just showed the people who were here for the seed thing what our pasture looked like, what it was like to run sheep in steep. And there were no babies. And they came back and I'm like, babies yet? And Tactical said no. Cause like I'd never have to ask him if there are babies because he will tell me instantly, but I still ask him every day when it's getting close. And I'm like, man, I think we're gonna get triplets because she's enormous. And we go over there and he's like, do you want to come hang out with the sheep? Because that's like a really nice thing to do. You come out to the pasture, you hang out with the sheep. It's peaceful. There's not a lot of noise. There's no technology. Like, it's a great thing. It's a great way to reset. And I was feeling a little stressed out. And I was like, no, it's a good idea. I think I would like to go hang out with the sheep because I could use a reset. So we ride over there. Nighthawk came over too to just check out everybody because he was hanging out with us. And they get ready to move the sheep to the new paddock. He's like, if you're over there anyway, let's move them because I'm ready to move them, but it could do it in the morning too. And if we get over there and they start running the wire for the last, like, we're going to run it here and pull it up there. I'm like, well, Tactical, there's a baby. And he's like, huh? And he looks up the hill and sure enough, there's a baby with a little black nose. Really cute. And he's like, well, I guess we're not moving the sheep because, like when there's new babies, you don't want to try to drive the mom into a new paddock at that minute. Like, you want to give them chance to bond with their babies and all of that. And then I was looking around, I can't remember what, and he's like, Nicole looked like he was like, you're not looking at the sheep and the second one's coming out. And I'm like, yeah, she looks really big. And then I looked up and saw the second one being born and she took care of it. And then Tactical went on to start like, getting things all secured up for the night for the sheep. And I was watching them to make sure that the baby started nursing. And I was like, hey, there's a third one coming out right now. So we had triplets. And then I was able to get real close. Like, these mothers don't like me to touch the babies, but I was able to get real close, I think, because she was just exhausted, and make sure everybody nursed. And I dried them off with a towel because it was gonna get cold and they were still wet and it was near sunset. So T went home and got me a towel and I dried them off and put them there, and everybody nursed. So everybody got colostrum. We are now 2 days in, and so far she's letting all 3 nurse. So what we're doing in this situation is watching carefully, because sheep can raise 3 if they're good milk producers, and she's a pretty good milk producer. If she starts pushing one away when they're nursing and only letting the other 2 nurse, and it's, usually it'll be the smaller one, then we will probably try to bottle feed the female, because we have 2 boys and a girl. And I don't care which one she's pulling away. If I bottle feed one, I want it to be the female because that's the one that's sticking around because the 2 boys are food. So that's all of the printing money stuff on the homestead. So we have been expanding the flock, and we have another one who I think is going to give birth today, and then a few more pregnant who are a little further out. Probably when we have a house sitter here, Bruni will go. So because that's just Murphy's law of having house sitters, is there's always something that happens. With that, it's time for the main topic of today's show, and that is lessons from the webinar series, or what does a webinar series bring you? Y'all have jubilantly joined my webinar series, so I appreciate that. We've had more registrations than we've ever had before for a webinar series, and this includes ones I've done with John Bush. So thank you for that. And if you haven't signed up, it's selfreliancefestival.com/webinar. We're doing 1 hour night starting at 7 p.m. Central. And we have a little introduction. We play half the session. We talk about some success stories in the middle. We play the rest of it. We do Q&A. We wrap. Last night we ended about 8:30. So I'm expecting they'll go about an hour and a half. I was trying to condense it into an hour. Thursday we're going to go later because that's Joel Salatin, and his speech is super long because people were so into what he had to say that we just let him keep talking when he was speaking. It's been a fun adventure because I've never done a webinar series like this before. I've always kind of wanted to, but been a little intimidated by having something 5 days every day without a production team, for example. And the SRF team and I came up with this concept, and they've been helping me. So I ended up with a production team and people helping me with marketing and planning. We've had some really fun nights planning out like the funny memes that promote the show. We've been just going meme crazy, and Letty and Sean are like really that. So it's been a great experience, and I wanted to share with you today sort of what we're getting from that. Like, why would you do this to yourself? Stay up later than you're supposed to, do a webinar series right at dinner time so that you're either eating after it or before it. After a webinar at night, too excited to go to bed, like all of those things. Why would we do such a thing? And this is the deal. The reason we decided to do the webinar series is that I was having a little trouble articulating all the cool things that happen at the Self-Reliance Festival. And so we were doing our best. I was doing my best, but I'm like, it's not just the speakers, it's the community. It's not just the community, it's the demos. It's not just the demos, it's the vendors. It's not just the vendors, it's watching people's lives change. It's not just watching people's lives change, it's having that community / fellowship connection. It's not just that, it's the entertainment, so it was like, we can't say all that, right? And I thought, what would be really cool is if we show people what it looks like. And I have past recordings of Self-Reliance Festival. So we decided to do it to get people excited so that they will come to Self-Reliance Festival transparently, to sell tickets, right? But more than that, because my core reason for doing Living Free in Tennessee is to share best practices to foster community. So we learn together. We share real experiences. We share our failures. We share our successes. I teach you step by step how to do things. I get people on who teach you step by step how to do things. We do a monthly webinar on the membership portal that teaches you how to do something. Our next one is Wild Edible Plants by Carrie Brown. So I had seen a lot of models of people doing webinars, and it seems like everybody's doing them now. And now there's AI generated webinars and whatever. I was like, here's the deal. I want to get people more excited about SRF. I want them to learn something useful right now because there is so much fear out there. And while we're there, we'll connect anybody who's on the webinar with each other so that they can start, like relationships go like this in our community when they start digitally. You meet people, you start talking about things, then you meet in person, then you become friends, then you discover there's a whole world of people who are similar to you in their priorities and what they value. And then you start doing GSD projects, get shit done, right? And then next thing you know, they're starting an event in their location, or they're starting their own channel, or they're starting a business. And then all of that upwell of community and success that's really my payback. So I wanted to do it a little differently than all of the webinar coaches say you have to do it. And what they say you have to do is sell, 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 convert, 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 convert. And that is not my brand. Do I tell you about ways that you can support me and things that you can buy and all of that? Absolutely, I do. But is this podcast and that webinar series just one big sales pitch? No. But unabashedly, yes, we are upselling. And I think it's important to know that going in. So we had to know how much of it was learning versus community versus opportunities to learn more by spending some money. With the spirit of the world right now being so negative, I thought it was important to have some encouragement. And so we set up the series to balance between a mindset shift, developing community, and tangible steps you can take in your backyard to start growing food, which is like printing money, as we just discussed in the former segment, right? Because a lot of people feel negative, and this happens every election year. So right now there's like all the drama, and there's all the world is ending, and our economy is stressed, and inflation is high, but they're saying that the economy is strong. But we know it's not really strong, guys. We know that there's more going on here, but that's okay, because we can still work every day to change what we can change, control what we control. And if we get our mind right, we're okay as a community. We're okay as individuals. Sure, some things might get hard, and that's okay too, because life has sometimes throws you things that are hard. I think it's so funny. My grandmother was a master storyteller. And most of her stories are about growing up in the Depression. And as I got to thinking about that, I was like, why is my grandmother such a master storyteller? It's because she had good stories to tell. A good story has a very long distance from the negative things that happen to the positive outcome. And when times are easy, that distance is small. And when times are hard, that distance is long. So, like, this is like a weird advantage to see about our times right now. Like, we've got, on one hand, I just watched a community member figure out that you can, excuse me for a minute, leave it. Okay, my dog was being difficult. We've had a community figure out that if you find a rural area that has a lower cost of income and go to Walmart there, their prices are lower. So inflation's hitting them so hard that they're literally thinking, if I drive to this other store, I have enough savings in the price difference, because Walmart adjusts their prices based on geography, that it's worth the drive for 45 minutes there and 45 minutes back. People figure out solutions when times are hard. And that was one I hadn't really thought of, although I do know it about Tractor Supply, right? When we need things at Tractor Supply. So one of the things that was really important as defining the why of the webinar series was, why do I do Self-Reliance Festival? Because it's not the money. Would I like Self-Reliance Festival to make me a lot of money? Yes. Does it? No. Is it actually costing me money right now? Yes. Okay. And time. Like, I don't get paid for my time. And that's going to change, or the festival is going away. I do SRF and LFTN because of the mindset change that it sparks in people. And the more people we can get there, the more change there is. I do it to give people hope and a way to move forward when they're scared. I give it to provide a place for the family reunion for people who have gotten to know each other in our community. And I do it as a way where people can meet people they've never met before. Okay. That's the big why. So as we were creating this webinar series, I thought it was very important to keep the spirit of why we exist in the webinar series. So that's all the foundation. So we were doing it to get more interest in SRF, sell more tickets, and connect more people so they can experience what it's really like. So when you go into a webinar series, you need to know your why. Is your why that you're launching a book and you want people to buy the book? Is it pure sales? That's one kind of webinar. Is it developing community? That's a different kind of webinar, right? Is it actually teaching people? Well, what is, is it free? Better to do free or not free? Well, for us, it was better to do free. So to get into something like this, you need to start first by, okay, what am I doing this for? Who am I doing it for? What do they care most about? And then assess your assets. And assess your assets is a step we take at the homestead as well, right? When you're looking around going, I'm spending a lot of money on homesteading. What can I do to bring money in? You assess your assets, and your assets can be skills, it can be network, it can be land, it can be a camper that you could fix up and rent. Like there's all sorts of things that can be assets. It could be the wild edibles that grow at your property. There's all sorts of cool things that can be an asset. And once you know what your assets are from a homestead design standpoint and what your goals are from a homestead design standpoint, then you're able to do things a lot more efficiently on your homestead. Likewise, with something like this webinar series, I was like, what assets do we have as we design this series that can really serve the purpose that we're trying to serve? And I realized we have recordings of almost all the sessions that have ever been done at Self-Reliance Festival for the last 3 years. And that's a lot of knowledge that's just there. Like the people who have bought the digital passes have access to it, but we've never done anything with that beyond like, hey, you can buy old digital passes. I was like, what if we like pick some of those that seem to address the spirit of our culture and our community right now that can help with a mindset change and do one a day. So rather than do like a marathon day, we'll do one a day so that people have time to watch them. If they can't be live at 7, they can go back and play them and sort of interact with people as part of that. And it gives them time to process between sessions. That would be cool. Well, what if as part of that, we, did some giveaways that people can pick up at SRF? Like yesterday, we gave away 2 pounds of coffee. Today, we're giving away something else. We're giving away a Hollow Roast inspired soap that Porterhouse and Teal make. What if we, for this week only, offer a discount code to get people to the event? Because to me, it's important to get people there in person as much as possible, because once they get there in person and experience the whole spirit of the festival, the mindset change almost always happens and people meet people. And when you have partners in crime on something or accountability partners or anything, it's amazing how much changes. So why don't we include in each night like a success story of somebody that's gone to Self-Reliance Festival or participated in the digital tickets and how that's changed their life over time? Because it's not like they go home and everything's better, right? The one we told last night was somebody who's went to Self-Reliance Festival a year ago, and it's taken a year for her life to change, but it was changing the whole year. And she was telling us about it the whole time. She will be back at SRF this time, right? And she'll actually be on the Tuesday Live on Tuesday telling her story again with John Willis. But let's include some of those so people can see tangibly what happens there. Because the other thing is watching webinars like this, when you see the success stories, you're like, you know what? I'm kind of like that. And I haven't been starting my soap making business or whatever it is because I've just felt too afraid that nobody's going to want it. And the biggest reason that I see people fail in our community is they don't start because of that or because of other overwhelming things. And I'm not saying everybody who starts is successful, but once they start, even if they're not successful at the thing they start, they usually learn during that enough to start something else and start something else. And eventually they find the thing that's right for them. Like I started by selling tomatoes at the farmer's market and now I'm a coffee roaster, right? So it's not different from most of our stories where we start one thing and we're like, okay, well, I learned how to do that, but that's not my thing. Or this is really hard to sell, but this other thing I do like sells itself. Maybe I should listen to the universe. Today, somebody asked me to make a playlist on YouTube for all the accelerators because as we add more, she's like, I just want to see them for inspiration. And I was like, okay, like I'm 3 weeks away from Self-Reliance Festival. Do I want to make this playlist? No. Would it take me more than 3 minutes to make this playlist? No. Am I going to make this playlist? Yes. I'm going to listen to what people want. And if I can provide it, it's super easy to do. And that, like, super easy to, like, probably won't even take me 60 seconds to do it. I'll probably do it right after I'm done with this because I'll be in my YouTube studio area anyway. So, because sometimes we make out things in our head to be bigger than they really are. So, assessing your assets is important. Well, the other thing that we have is a really strong community. So tap into your community. We came up with this whole plan of which sessions to do. We have some freebies that happen in the episode. Like tonight, there will be an extra video that you get access to that's related to today's topic, which is building backyard soil with Porterhouse. It's his presentation on how to build backyard soil. And then at the end, we have another video you can watch if you want to watch from a different speaker. So we're adding download different things. I've got a great network of content creators who we all try to cross promote each other's things, which meant I could reach out to them and say, hey, here's a free webinar. And if anybody who participates in the webinar buys something, you'll get a commission on that. Because if that happens, right, then that's somebody that we hadn't reached another way. So I see that as a win-win where, they're willing to talk about it and they're excited about it. And then if somebody buys something, then they get a little piece of that. And then of course we have Rebecca, the video maven lady. So some of the engineering and tech stuff, we have a great lady at figuring that out. And you're going to see the engineering of this webinar series get a little better each time as we learn, because I realized that although I do webinars here, that I have a switch and I can do like live versus slides pretty easily. When it comes to doing something of this scale where we have co-hosts from other places and live video and video that we're streaming and like all this other stuff, it's a different infrastructure to put into place. And if I was ever going to do like a paid webinar series, right, I want all of that dialed in. For a free webinar series, like if I had to go in the middle of yesterday's webinar and realize the video didn't start where I wanted to and take 30 seconds to move it where I wanted it to start at, which did happen. It's a free webinar series. They're not mad at me. If they've spent, $7,500 on that, they're like, hey man, like get your stuff together, man. I paid you money. I want this to be great. So, tap into your community. You never know who you have. And then we have a bunch of people who are good co-hosts. So last night I had Toolman Tim on as a co-host so that we could kind of talk back and forth on what we were learning from the sessions. Because the other thing that's fun about this is that at SRF, yes, I see some of the sessions, but I have a lot of interruptions. I don't see the sessions all the way. And even if I have, like the one we played last night was my underground networking one, which was 3 years old or 2 years old or something. And it was kind of fun to watch that because it was when gas was really high in price. And so that was the example I was talking about. And I was like, man, nothing's changed since then. Like we're in that same cycle right now. And but it was also a chance to just think about, like, although nothing's changed, things have changed. And what have we learned from that? And how can we move forward? So that was fun. So now that we've had our first night of the webinar series, we've gone through promoting it and marketing and all of that. What are the lessons I've learned? And I have 6. Number 1, people love a freebie. I don't know why I haven't done more like free webinar series that sort of drive into other things, other than I never stepped back long enough to think about how that could work. Like, how can we provide value and then provide more value, right? But abuse this to your peril. And I say this, there are 2 schools of thoughts on things like this, where you do a webinar series and you just slaughter people with upsells and you hassle them until they buy. That's 100% not my style and never going to happen. Other people who it is their style are like, I don't want to talk to anybody who it bothers them that I'm selling them things. And both schools of thought are valid. I know that I don't respond well to that, because if I feel like you're only giving me part of the story and there's this secret I have to pay extra money for, I feel like you are impacting my trust. That's my own my own headspace. And so I don't want to do that to people. So if you're going to provide a freebie, be really clear about what that freebie is, so that you don't tick them off later in, things that are not part of the freebie. Two, well, I guess two is that be upfront about your upsells. When we started talking about the webinar series, when we created the page, we included in all of the materials clarity on what we were upselling. Like, we're going to do this free webinar series. These are the things we're going to provide as part of this webinar series. There's going to be some giveaways. There's going to be some downloads. There are going to be co-hosts. We are going to upsell you on Self-Reliance Festival tickets. We, and some other things, but we are not going to be up in your face about it the whole stupid webinar, because that's not what we're about. We want you to get value from the webinar and that sort of thing. I think when you're upfront about that, it's not like a bad taste is left in my mouth because in this free webinar series, there were upsells, right? And there were upsells from day one. Like, you could buy, in fact, people did. Thank you, by the way. People bought digital passes after signing up for the webinar before we even had our first webinar series, because we're like, by the way, the webinar, there are digital passes. It's in the email. You can buy it here. And there's a top secret coupon code you can use. It's not so top secret anymore because we were streaming live last night. Number 3, the technical and production part of something like this always takes more time, more learning, and more hassle than you ever thought it would. All of it takes way more time investment than you think. So we're going in saying, hey, we've already got the videos. We'll do a script around each one. We'll have co-hosts. We'll do these things. We'll bring them in. This is the way it works. These are the tools that work. We've already used these tools before. And then you get into it and you're like, wow, this is taking way more time to put together than I thought it would. This always happens. And you always have to have backups to your backups. So yesterday, had my internet failed, there was another person ready to stream video from their side. And, end of the world, if you have a meltdown on a free webinar, you just say, hey, we're going to restart this one, at X time, and you can access the recording. One time I did one where the video failed and the people could hear it who watched it live, but the recording didn't catch it. And I had to go re-record narrating to the video to make it possible for people to download the video. That was my worst one ever. So that meant that not only did I have to do the 1-hour presentation on marketing, Mr. Clean style, I had to go back and re-narrate it with the transitions happening while I watched it. That was a fun one. So be ready for that. Like, if you're going to do something like this, my primary directive every single day while this is going on is the webinar series. If I'm going to say my 1-3 thing is something right now, it's the webinar series. Yes, I want to produce today's podcast. That's why we pre-recorded it, so that you would get it. But I could not commit to a 2 p.m. live, so to speak. And as I've said, I've been moving the Monday episode more to something that doesn't have a lot of interaction with the comments, because I have heard feedback from my audio podcast listeners that they find that a little distracting. So I'm finding a balance there. The Friday live is a live. The Monday show is a Monday show. And that's sort of how we're going. Even when I'm live, I try to keep myself from getting too squirrely. Although sometimes it's a very squirrely day. The other thing that takes way more time than you think it will is communicating and marketing about it, like putting together the ad campaign and getting the video edited for that and getting it out. And we did some paid advertisement for this on YouTube and on Facebook. And then we were measuring how that went, coming up with funny memes to share about it, having graphics, equipping all of our partners with their affiliate code, the graphics they can use, some samples of ways to explain what's going on. Like, all of that took a lot more time than we originally thought going in. We're like, oh, we'll spend a couple hours putting this together. So it was days. This has been before we even announced it, it had been in the works for a couple of weeks before I even started talking to people about it, like in our content creator network, which happened before we actually started talking about it externally. So don't be surprised, even with all the ways that we can shortcut this. We had 3 of us putting in some pretty serious time on the marketing stuff, and a 4th person helping. And, a couple of you got phone calls from me where I'm like, hey, I need to talk this through because it's like, I'm having trouble with how this message is going to go. Like, there was all of it. And I wished I would have had another 40 hours to put on that going in. I will say that. But I'm not unhappy with it. Like it's gone pretty well. I'll talk about the conversion of the webinar, the percentage conversion and why I think that is. So the fourth lesson learned is if you can add this to any registration page, do it. And it was a question. I added, you don't have to fill it out if you don't want to, by the way. The registration form has a question that says, where did you hear about this webinar? Basically, I don't know if that's the exact wording, or where did you hear about this? And I haven't ever included that in a registration before. I'm trying to make it easy. It's like your name, your email, done. And then you feed into our email list for the webinar, which then automatically sends you a, hey, here's your first webinar link. Oh, come to think of it, I need to change that link because anybody who registered since last night got the wrong link. That's okay. They'll get the right link today. So I'll have to make that clear in the next automated email. And then I could schedule out those emails saying like in 4 hours, we're starting. In 1 hour, we're starting. 15-minute warning. We just started. All of those are pre-scheduled and pre-written so that we're not like doing that beforehand. But having that, where did you hear about this question, has been one of the most entertaining things I have ever included in a form. The reason I put it there is that if you hear Brian from the Lots Project talking about the webinar series and you use his link, which we know that you used his link, and then for some reason you clear your cash or whatever and you buy something, I don't know for sure if your sale was from him or not, if you didn't like use his link and buy something. And so sometimes that breaks down. And I'm always a little worried that the affiliate stuff won't work because it's happened to me with other affiliate relationships that their system just breaks and then I don't get credit for a bunch of sales. And it makes me a little grumpy when I have, officially put time in for that. It's not just an accidental sale. And so I thought, well, here's what we'll do. I can cross-reference people's email addresses with who they heard about it from if they write that in there. And then if I see that they bought something, but I don't see that there was an affiliate commission from that, I can manually do that. And it takes extra time, but after Self-Reliance Festival's done, before April 15th, my goal is to go through and just cross-reference everything, make sure everybody got credit and get everybody paid if they had affiliate upsells. And so I put it in, and the answers I have been getting have been awesome. Like, some people just say, TSP, LFTN, whatever. I add on Facebook. So that's been insightful for me to know where people are just finding us from. But some of them are like giving me narratives that are hilarious. Like one of them's like, well, first I heard about it from this person, and then I heard about it from that person, and then it was on the Tuesday Live. And I'm like, this is very insightful for me. So I've learned a ton from that, but I've also been highly entertained by the answers. So, you just keep them coming, guys. Keep giving me those answers. But remember, if you're like, hey, I heard about it from Brian and Lots and blah, 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 that's how I cross-reference it. So if you're going to make up something ridiculous, be sure to make it up, including who you heard it from, if that applies. I would strongly advise adding something like that on anything you do in the future, because it's when you wonder which of your efforts are working on outreach, having that feedback is gold, because then you know where to put more efforts. Okay, the other thing I learned was a high converting landing page is super helpful for webinars. And I usually just so in the past, what Nicole has done is make a product page where you can, as quickly as possible, get it in the cart. And this time I thought, let's do something different, because I need our affiliates to be able to drive people somewhere where it's clear what's going on, and it answers questions like the one that always comes up: can I view this later if I can't be there live? Like number one webinar question that always happens. And the answer is yes, through midnight on Sunday, April 24th, or March 24th. And then, the next question is, what systems do I have to use? Which sessions are going to happen? What are the schedules? All these questions that come up. And I can include those in a product thing, but I thought, let's do something a little different. So a lot of webinar pages have like this long form sales content that you don't even get to the buy it button till the bottom. I have the attention span of a gnat. And if you do that to me, you did not get a sale. You've lost me from the beginning, because I'm like, I'm here, I'm ready to buy, boom, done. Don't even care. I don't even care. All I needed to know is it starts Sunday and you're going to email me about when it starts and I'll go from there. Not everybody's like me. They want to know more information. They want to know who's going to speak. They want to know who the co-hosts are. They want to know what the schedule is. They want to know which tool we're using to, like all of that stuff. So to balance both, and we had a team meeting about this. I'm like, how do we get this done? And they're like, well, don't have it up in your face, but at the top, have an easy way to register. And then also visible at the top, have the beginning of what it is and what would get me interested in it. And so we put together a landing page that sort of bridged both those things, because the registration is at selfreliancefestival.com webinar further down the page. But if you click on the sign me up button, it takes you down. It just scrolls down to that so that you don't have to go through all the stuff. And then for the people who want to see the stuff, they can. The thing I think it could use would be some video testimonials of like success stories or examples of what it looks like. And that goes back to, I wish I had another 40 hours. So we used what we had to do what we can. And the conversion rate for this page, for every one person that goes to this page, it was 55% at first, but it's a 45% chance that they're going to fill out the form. So basically we can compare how many registrants we got versus how many people have ever gone to that page. And it's a 45% conversion rate, which is really good. That's really good. Now, some people do much higher than that on certain kinds of pages, but that's an awesome conversion rate. And it's because of the content of the page, right? Well, yes and no. So we've made it easy for once you get there for you to sign up, but we are also sending what I would call warm leads to that page. So everybody who goes there has heard about the webinar, is already interested in probably signing up. They've heard about it from a content creator. They've heard about it from me. They've heard about it in an email. They've maybe gotten it. Like that conversion rate dropped when we started doing the paid ads by 5%. Okay. The paid ads are getting us less warm leads. But when it's like a referral from somebody who believes in what we're doing, that's a pretty hot lead right there, very likely to convert. And so what I think we have going on is it would be a higher conversion rate if what I was comparing was, which I don't have this kind of tracking in place on that page, just so you can feel good about yourself. Like if I knew from your IP address or something that you've been to the page 6 times because you keep going back to look, right? That's 6 visits. You've only signed up 1 time. So we're not tracking that. We could track that, but I didn't feel like it was worth putting anything like that in place anyway. But I do think it has to do with how we're doing outreach. And I think if we were going to do some more wide advertising, I would adjust the strategy of the page a little bit, because I already knew we were getting warm leads. So we tailored it to people who are going there because they're looking for the webinar. If we were going to do more cold leads, it would be a totally different approach in the content. Okay. I had to pause the recording for a minute because I had to sneeze, man. Just in case you see a little like glitch. That's why the glitch happened. Okay. And then last but not least, think about, are you in this for a long-term benefit or short-term benefit? We are in this for the long term. We want to establish a strong community and engage with the community and help people lift each other up. And yes, sell tickets to Self-Reliance Festival. And to me, that means if people are going to come in April, great. If you're going to see digital passes in April, great. If you want to buy a package, a smaller set of videos from former events for a little bit less money, great. If that brings you benefit, awesome. But if you just want to keep in touch with the community and maybe buy tickets in October this year or another time, that's great too. So when we're talking in the video about, in the webinar series, like the content is sort of built around, yes, it would be great if you buy tickets right now, but there are all these other opportunities that you can tap into. Here's ways to connect with each other. Yesterday, we were like linking people with all the Telegram groups that exist. In fact, I want to put that together in a resource page for people so it's easier for them to access, because I realized, like, first and foremost, if what you have is a question about where to buy land in Tennessee, which always comes up, you need to know that these are the 3 Telegram groups that you can go into, because there's a whole bunch of people who talk about where they live and land opportunities and all these other things. And you get to know people in Tennessee. And then when you come here, you'll be like, okay, I want to meet that person, or I want to go see that place. And that's kind of cool. So if your only goal is to sell your book, that's a very short-term thing. And then you're structuring things differently. I think it's better to have a long-term vision for this, but I think it's better to have a long-term vision for most things. So that is it. Anyway, that's everything I've learned so far about this webinar series. I'm still learning. I'll share with y'all as we go. If you have questions about it, email them to me at nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com, or fill out the contact form. And here's what I'll leave with. I'll leave you with. And this is all about knowing your why. And sometimes when you have a why and you answer like, why am I doing this? Your first why is not your why, and you have to why your why. You know what I mean? Like a 3-year-old, like a relentless 3-year-old, until you really find the foundation you're there. Know your why for the series, know your brand and how that represents your brand. Don't go counter to your brand because some expert has recommended that you do this other really annoying thing. Don't do it. Be true to your brand and be willing to take a chance, because the investment in this has been a big risk for us, but I think the payoff is huge just in watching the people interact in the comments yesterday. And if you want to check out the webinar series, our next one is 7:00 tonight. We've got Porterhouse talking about backyard soil building, and that's at selfreliancefestival.com/webinar. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week.